Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where as I record today's episode, which is probably around 7 days later when you hear this, but the heat wave continues here in the UK with crazy temperatures and freak weather all around the world at the moment. I wanted to try and tie it into how businesses can use technology to make more ethical spending decisions. And a company called Coupa recently launched 8 new features that put environment, social and corporate governance, ESG, right at the forefront of crucial business investment and spending decisions, hopefully inspiring businesses to operate much more sustainably and with far greater sense of social purpose in the future. What a great idea. And I want to find out more about this because despite the tremendous pressure on businesses to implement and execute these ESG initiatives, most just struggle to get started and make programs actionable and understand how they can measure them. So today, I want to learn more about how Coupa's technology is focused on helping businesses better manage their spending and achieve social impact goals, turning what is often, let's be honest, just rhetoric into intention, into measurable actions. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York, where Donna Wilczek, Coupa's SVP of Product Strategy and Innovation, is waiting to speak with us. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Donna Wilczek. I'm Senior Vice President of Product Strategy and Innovation for Coupa. Coupa is a business spend management software company. We help companies spend their money in a way that makes it easier for them to get visibility and control and compliance of this business spending and ultimately create more impact. And what I do is I help our customers try to understand the vision of where this technology goes. And I work with our customers and our product organization on implementing the vision.
Fantastic. And there's a lot we're going to be talking about today. But before we find out more information about that, one of the things that I always like to do with my guests is find out a little bit more about their origin story. So I've got to ask, where did your passion for technology and innovation come from? And ultimately, what put you on the path you're on today?
That's an interesting question. I think I've always, even as a child, I was always committed to trying to figure out how to improve something, a process, how to make it better. And when I was 13 years old, I actually worked on a factory line making tea, where I would take packages of tea coming off of a line, put them in boxes, get them packed. And I was constantly striving for, oh my gosh, how do I improve this process? How do I make it more efficient? And it has really served me well throughout my life, especially now being in tech, is this notion of how does technology improve the process and how do you reduce effort? How do you take cycle times out? And how do you create a better result? So it's always been connected from when I was a very young child to now.
I love that, and how it's connected to you as a child as well. And fast forward to here in 2021, just to set the scene for people that are hearing about Coupa for the very first time, can you tell the listeners a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving for your customers with technology, of course?
Yeah, of course. So Coupa is business spend management. What we do is we help our customers. These could be companies from about $50 million in annual turnover to hundreds of billions of dollars in annual turnover. We help these companies manage their business spending. Now, you would say, okay, well, what does that mean? What's going on? What happens is as these organizations are growing, they're ultimately spending more money to produce their product, deliver their service. And they buy a lot of technology to help them on that journey. They buy procurement software, they buy sourcing products, they buy travel and expense software. And before you know it, they have 50, 60 different applications that are trying to manage their business spending. And all their employees can't stand any of it. It's so hard to use. It's so difficult. Nobody knows what to do. So you end up getting no visibility and no control. And so what Coupa did is really created a platform, a cloud technology platform for pulling together all of these disparate processes into a really user-friendly solution that allows an employee to buy something, whether it's a product or whether it's a service or creating an expense report, but it's all done on one simple, easy-to-use solution. So everyone is on the same page, management gets visibility of all the spending, and you're in compliance with the local regulations and laws.
Cool. And before you came on the podcast, I did do a little bit of research, and I think I've got to mention this. I learned that Coupa has more than 2.6 trillion worth of business spending that has passed through the Coupa platform. I mean, is that figure right?
That figure is right,
wow.
Indeed. And it is amazing. I've been at Coupa now 10 years. I joined when the company had about 20 employees. Today, well over 3,000 employees. And we have seen everything be purchased, everything from products to services, from companies buying Metallica concerts to parts that have ended up in space. So we have really seen our customers use the technology to get control of that spending on everything they buy.
Wow, that's incredibly cool.
Yeah.
And I think as the business world is increasingly taking sustainability seriously, and quite rightly too, and moving towards more diverse and sustainable suppliers, I'm curious, how can businesses use technology to move towards ethical spending decisions in your view?
Yeah, I think it goes back to you have to be present where spend is happening in those handshake moments between the company and their suppliers, because it is in those moments that you can actually change your behavior and change how you spend the dollars. And that's where I see Coupa's role and technology's role here in business spending, which is inserting the process or changing the process, making a recommendation to the employee as they are in the moment of spending the dollars. For example, as these employees are searching for products, showcase the products that are green and environmentally sound, that are better for the environment. I personally believe, and our data shows us, that employees will make the right decision if you make it easy for them. If you put it right in front of them, if you have two products that are near identical, and one is a green or eco-friendly item, and one is not, chances are very high they'll do the right thing. But if you made it such that the first item that appears is the non-eco-friendly, and in order to find an eco-friendly, you have to go do a 10, 15-minute process in another system, just not going to happen. So the technology has to be an enabler for making this easy for the employee to consume, getting it right in front of them, whether it's finding diverse suppliers, finding green items, or really helping reduce the carbon footprint on your offerings.
And we will have a few business leaders that are listening to the podcast thinking, this sounds incredibly cool, and they're going to go speak to their IT director, or will say, that's great, but what's the technology? How does it work? What makes it all possible? So to answer those questions, could I ask a little bit more about what goes on under the hood and the tech that makes all this possible?
Sure. It all started, we were born in the cloud. 13 years ago, the company actually made some really key decisions in those early days to be multi-tenant SaaS, 100% cloud. And if you think back to those years, cloud was not a de facto outcome, right? So we had hard conversations with those earliest customers and the companies that were just not really ready to move their technology to the cloud. Now, of course, it has served us very well, because it is a full 100% multi-tenant cloud type environment where all of our customers are able to get started quickly. Our technology connects to everything under the sun, whether it's SAP or Oracle or any number of ERP or bespoke solutions that our customers have created. We're processing maybe about 4 billion API and user interface related calls on a monthly basis. The volumes are incredibly high. It takes a company about maybe 6 months or so to go live with the technology, and they're getting a return within months of go live. So from an IT perspective, we've really figured it out. We've sorted it out because we had this mindset from day one that our customers would need to connect our technology to their back-end technologies. And so that has been solved for through the years with common data models, best practices, integration guides, middleware solutions that we have. And again, being a multi-tenant SaaS company, what this has allowed us to do is structure the data models underneath all of our customers to be effectively the same. You have a starting point with your data tables that is extensible for the business needs for each customer. And that allows us to aggregate all of our customer data, that $2.6 trillion in spend, to aggregate it, to normalize it, to anonymize it, and apply AI then to that resulting big data set to deliver what we call community.ai insights and recommendations to customers. Technology, fairly sophisticated across the board. We just announced over 100 patents that have been issued or are in the process of being issued. And we're very proud of what we've built here, a very sophisticated technology model that's easy for employees to use and very easy for the IT organization to be able to connect into their broader landscape as well.
It's incredibly cool, and quite rightly so, how proud you are of what you've created here. And we're talking about that 2.6 trillion that is being spent there on the platform, just to bring all that to life. I'm curious, do you have any client stories of the type of companies you're helping to operate much more sustainably and with far greater sense of social purpose in the future of leveraging your technology? I appreciate you might not be able to mention names, but are there any stories that spring to mind?
Sure. And yeah, absolutely. I can certainly mention some names because our customers are rightly so very proud of their results as well in these areas of sustainability. And they've actually been quite vocal about what they've achieved as well, which I'm very, very proud to see, because I do feel that change happens when businesses can see that it's possible, that other businesses like them have made changes and have impacted their sustainability, their footprint. Some of our technology, for example, is what we call a supply chain design technology. In this world of supply chain design, our technology takes all of our customers' network points. For example, where a product is produced, where the product has a distribution center, where the product needs to get to, where their customers are located. And it pulls all of these data points into what we call a digital twin, so that a customer could model a change to their network. For example, what happens, a very common request these days, is an executive will come to an employee and say, "We need to reduce our carbon footprint. Tell me how we're going to do that tomorrow." And the employees historically have said, that is an impossible request, because in order for me to model all of the possible combinations, it will take me months and months and months to model, because those combinations of where my product is produced, where it ends up, how it comes back to me for recycling and circular economy, that all of those different points and permutations can equal over 100 billion, 200 billion, 300 billion combinations of data points. So you have these employees saying, it is impossible for me to model hundreds of billions of permutations of what I could do. And Coupa solves that problem. So our supply chain technology models, creates this digital twin and uses AI to model all of the various outcomes. So you could say, for example, what if I wanted to move my shipments via a slower mode, but more ecologically sound, more sustainable? What would the impact be to the business? How much delay would there be to the suppliers? Would I still be in compliance with my contracts with my customers? So modeling all of these components has allowed them to make some major changes. And its customers, a company called CHEP. CHEP creates pallets and containers for their customers. CHEP had a process where, again, they had a similar problem. How do we reduce our carbon footprint? And in order to model all of these components, CHEP used the Coupa technology, the supply chain technology, to model. And in doing so, they evaluated all of their different options for reducing emissions, what the trade-offs were, how do we look at optimizing our shipment routes, some really complicated things in this model. But the outcome of the analysis and now their implementation of that analysis is that they reduced their CO2 emissions per unit delivered by 33%. Wow. They avoided 2 million tons of CO2 and 1.3 megatons of waste in their process. Just, on a personal level, as I know you're sweating in your house right now because it's so hot because of warming. On a personal level, these are the types of things that are going to positively impact this planet that we live in and that our children and our children's children will live. And just phenomenal results. And I always say to myself, if every business that had a physical supply chain was able to remodel how they get their goods to their customers and relook at their network, what could be achieved if they really started accelerating the speed at which they understand what they could do and then take action?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's something we're all seeing. And like you're saying, I'm sweating like crazy here. It's 10 to 6 in the evening and it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit here in the UK. And we've seen where I think it was Vancouver earlier this year was hitting 140. And quite rightly, all businesses now are looking at lowering the carbon footprint, seeing how we can work together and make a difference. But how do you think technology is so important for companies looking to spend more ethically? Do you think tech is crucial in playing that role there?
Oh, I think tech is absolutely crucial. It is an enabler of results, a gateway to get out these results. I think every business has a responsibility to do their part. And what is interesting, what we're seeing, of course, across the globe, is that when businesses don't act and when they don't act fast enough, the governments are getting involved with fines, with increasing pressure to move faster. And also, we're certainly seeing the investment community. The investors are changing, and they're changing how they invest in companies and using sustainability as a way to determine whether they should make an investment, which I'm so happy to see, because if that's what it takes to drive a business to make changes, then so be it. But what I without question see is that if a business doesn't move fast enough, they're going to be forced into making that change. And so it's certainly better to leverage technology, review the options you have available, and move on your own accord than having to be forced by some government mandate.
And I think we can both probably remember, was it Al Gore back in the day that was leading the charge on sustainability and climate change? Nobody listened. But I think this time around it feels different, and there seems to be this collective conscience almost that everyone wants to make the difference now. But I'm curious, what excites you about the road ahead?
Yeah, what excites me about the road ahead, because I agree with you. I think you could say, well, we've seen this before. We've seen companies try this and it kind of fizzled out once attention went away. The difference, again, I see is this investment community that has really taken a strong mindset of we are not going to invest unless you have made these changes. And broadly, I think there's just a clear recognition that this is no longer optional. Yeah. This is something that all businesses should do for the health of our overall planet and for the impact to our local communities, right? So it's the sustainability impact on the planet, but also the impact in our local economies with our small businesses, our medium businesses, these diverse businesses that have been, quite frankly, left out of the business-related processes for far too many years. So what excites me about the road ahead is having a role in helping businesses drive these changes, not just measure the change, but actually drive the change. And that's what I'm most excited about with Coupa and what we call sustainable BSM, is that helping our customers spend with a more socially responsible mindset, where that socially responsible mindset is just part and parcel of the decision. It's not an afterthought. It's within that process.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to come on here, share your origin story, the journey that you've been on and where you're heading. I'm going to throw a slight curveball in your direction. A question I always like to ask my guests is, what was the soundtrack to your career in tech there? Was there a particular song or piece of music that has played a big part in your career, or even just helps you get your head in the zone before going in a meeting or going on stage? Is there a particular song that means anything to you?
So first, I'm a huge Prince fan. I saw him so many times in concert. So I would say the general songs around my life are Prince. But if I had to think about it in the context of tech, I would say there's this memorable moment at Coupa. Every year we do these dance videos with our customers and our employees. And if there is one thing I cannot do, is dance. I know my limitations, Neil. So a couple of years ago, we were doing this dance video, and the song was "The Greatest" by Sia.
Yes.
And so our marketing team decides that my role in this video is that I will be Sia. So I have this black wig on, I have this rainbow face makeup, and I have my husband watch the video. And I have him try to find me. He watches 3 times before he finds me in this dance video.
Absolutely lovely. It's a video evidence of this video still?
There's video evidence. I'll send you a link. I will put it on my LinkedIn page if anyone wants to see it.
Yes, definitely.
It's a great video.
And also, you did mention Prince means a lot to you. What is your favorite Prince track, I've got to ask?
Oh my gosh, that is probably the hardest question you could possibly ask me.
Yeah.
It really depends on the day and the moment. I've seen him like 40 times in concert, wow. And it was I just feel like he's a wonderful performer, whether it was a small stage venue or some of the largest stadiums in the world. He made it feel personal.
Yeah, very special. And there's also a clip online, I don't know if you've ever seen this, where there was a Beatles tribute where they sang "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." When Prince just comes out of nowhere to knock it out of the park, it's like nothing I've ever seen,
Yeah. So, well, if I had to choose one Prince song, I'd probably give you maybe like Little Red Corvette is probably the moment I'm in right now.
Great tune.
Yeah.
And before I let you go, for anyone listening wants to find out more about Coupa, contact your team, or find out more information, what's the best starting point?
Sure. So coupa.com is our website. I'm Donna Wilczek on LinkedIn or D Wilczek on Twitter. I'm always available. Everyone will tell you I'm obsessed. I literally am obsessed with technology and innovation and trying to figure out how technology can create a movement and help enable better spending.
Well, I've loved chatting with you today. Yes, about why technology is so important for companies looking to spend more ethically, the difference that spending more ethical and diverse suppliers can make, but more than anything, just taking the time to sit down, share your story, the mission that you're on and the difference you want to make. Cannot thank you enough. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you so much. It was great chatting with you.
More than 2.6 trillion worth of business spending has passed through Coupa's platform. That just shows the scale of how much money could be redirected into diverse, sustainable suppliers, and why technology is important for companies looking to spend more ethically. And loved hearing more about why technology is so important for companies looking to spend more ethically, and also how Coupa Software works and how companies use it to improve sustainability and diversity efforts. But over to you. Everything we've talked about today is something that I think every business is trying to grapple with, trying to make sense and put in measurable actions. What's worked well? What isn't working? How are you doing it? What lessons have you learned along the way? Please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. LinkedIn, Twitter and Instagram is just @NeilCHughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So I'm looking forward to hearing how you are managing these problems and turning them into solutions. But as the heat is high today, I'm going to jump in a cold shower now. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.